Good morning. I call to order the County of Placer Board of Supervisors meeting for Tuesday, June 5th, 2012 at 9 a.m. We will begin this morning with the flag salute led by Supervisor Holmes.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I was supposed to say
Thank you, Supervisor Holmes. At this time, we will have the Statement of Meeting Procedures read by our clerk, Ann Holman.
Welcome to the Placer County Board of Supervisors meeting of Tuesday, June 5th, 2012. Agendas are available on the wall outside this meeting room. If you are here to speak on an issue not appearing on the agenda, you may do so during the public comment period. There is a 3-minute time limit per speaker. The board is not permitted to take action on items addressed under public comment. When you speak, clearly state your name and address for the record. All items on the agenda will be open for the public to address before final action is taken. There is a 3-minute time limit per speaker, which will be monitored by a timer on the podium. If there is a person speaking on behalf of a group with no other testimony from another member of the group, please identify yourself as such, and your time may be extended at the pleasure of the board. Keep in mind that the chairman has discretion of limiting the total discussion time on any item. If you are hearing impaired, we have listening devices available. It is requested that all pagers and cell phones be either turned off or put in the silent mode. Thank you for your participation and cooperation.
Thank you, Ann. Now is the time for public comment. Persons may address the board on items not on today's agenda. Please limit comments to 3 minutes per person, since the time allocated for public comment is 15 minutes. If all comments cannot be heard within the 15-minute time limit, the public comment period will be taken up at the end of the regular session. The board is not permitted to take any action on items addressed under public comment. If there's anyone who would like to make public comment, please come forward. Thank you.
I'm speaking on behalf of Public Interest Coalition and the Sierra Club. Because agriculture is critical and protected or preserved by zoning, and because many family farms struggle to stay afloat, Placer County often reaffirms its support of ag operations by, quote, easing burdens or providing relief and approving entitlements such as selling produce and value-added goods at roadside stands, special ordinances, or fee waivers. However, there is a real threat to ag land preservation with inappropriate land use designations known as community centers. The community center designation in the county zoning code is so vague and broad that it invites incompatible land use in our farm ag zones, such as year-round parties, dances, concerts, receptions, weddings, etc. The word etc. is actually in the code. Currently in Placer County, there are 4 of these year-round event centers being proposed, 3 of which are east of the divide on ag or farm lands. These 3 proposals include huge year-round events, both weekly and monthly. They are, in our opinion, commercial endeavors disguised as, quote, promoting agriculture, and are taking advantage of the vagueness of the community-centered language to circumvent the zoning intention. Community centers are allowed in ag areas, but they were meant for grange halls or similar nonprofit type facilities, not investment opportunities with all the negative impacts to ag communities. We are not opposed to community centers per se, as they were originally intended. But until the language is more clearly defined to plug the loopholes, we urge this board to place a moratorium on all community center approvals because a thorough vetting of this land use designation is needed and would reaffirm the county's commitment to preserve ag lands. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward under public comment? Thank you.
Good morning. I do have a handout for each of you.
If you could hand that to the clerk of the board, please.
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
My name is Susan Parizio. I'm from Willows, California, in Glenn County. This letter is for you, the Board of Supervisors. The Humane Society of the Sierra Foothills, HSSF, is running amok. Headquartered in Placer County, this unregulated, private, nonprofit corporation has conducted at least 4 seizures totaling 87 animals. Animals taken from county residents. To date, only 1 case has been filed by the district attorney, and no animals have been returned to their owners. These were not emergency seizures. The animals were not in immediate danger. The seizures were well-orchestrated productions using out-of-county assistance with questionable jurisdiction. Planned well in advance, HSSF humane officers claimed they were acting on complaints they had allegedly received. Strange that Placer County Animal Services had not received any complaints of neglect or cruelty regarding the animals seized. No pre-seizure hearings were conducted as required by law, Penal Code 597.1, and in 3 of the seizures, charges have yet to be filed. In the absence of charges, HSSF extorts exorbitant fees for the animals seized through misappropriation of Penal Code 597.1(f). HSSF then demands the owner pay an amount they dictate every 14 days, or the animals will be forfeited to HSSF. The owner is not presented a pathway to regain their property without their day in court. Where are these 87 animals? Are they being held as evidence? If so, where? If charges are not filed, how do the owners regain their seized private property? If charges are not filed, then why should an owner be forced to pay for the animal's care when wrongdoing on their part has only been alleged by a non-law enforcement agency? California State Corporation Code 14501 states that a humane society may operate with a contract with the city or county, or may operate in a city or county without a contract. While a county must comply with state law, a county has the authority to enact an ordinance that is more stringent than state law. I would ask the Board of Supervisors to consider enacting an ordinance that requires any humane society operating in Placer County be required to have a contract with Placer County. In this way, the private, nonprofit, non-regulated humane societies would be accountable to the legally constituted authority of this county. Additionally, at the same time, I have written each of you a letter. Rosemary Freeborn, who is authorized by the Humane Society, is up for reappointment, and I would ask that you vigorously oppose that, as she was the one who orchestrated these seizures. The packet includes relevant information. I know you all already have it, but I put it all in one place. And on the back of your packet, and then I will go, is a letter from a person who could not be here, and she asked that her letter be included in the packet. And thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to make comments under public comment? Please come forward.
Hi, my name is John Javidan. I'm the interim CEO at Placer County Fairgrounds, and I just wanted to invite you guys to the fair. I brought all the supervisors' tickets to the fair, parking passes. We have a Smash Mouth concert on Thursday, and MMA fight on Friday, and NASCAR races on Saturday, and Enduro on Sunday. So I just want to invite you.
Thank you very much. If you'd like to give those to the clerk of the board, thank you. Anyone else? Public comment opportunity. All right. Seeing none, I am going to close public comment. We do have a 9:05 timed item that I will go to. at this point. We do.
I did not see this.
Tony did not see this item. This is a thing of beauty. We occasionally can be subtle here at the county, very occasionally. This is, I'm both honored and saddened, actually, to say that this is a presentation and adoption of a resolution commending County Council Anthony J. LaBeouf for 28 years of dedicated public service to the Board of Supervisors and to the County of Placer. And I know that Supervisor Robert Wygant, with whom our council has worked the longest, is going to take it from here.
Didn't think we could pull this one off on you, did you? We're not quite
I'm
as
still going to check on the brown end.
we're not quite as stupid as you think.
I bet you had help.
We did. So, Tony, as you know the drill, I'm going to read this, and then you get the chance to go down to the podium, except the microphone's going to be turned off when you get down there. As well as a few other. Whereas Anthony J. LaBeouf commenced his employment with Placer County on September 17, 1984 as a deputy county counsel as a transplant from Southern California, where he earned his undergraduate degree in UCLA and his law degree at Loyola University Law School. Whereas Tony's initial assignment involved tort litigation, where he successfully defended the county's coffers from predation and marauding plaintiffs' counsel as if he were defending his own money, and his tenacious and effective style caused a quick ascent through the ranks of the county counsel's office. He learned and then expertly handled a wide variety of assignments in personnel, criminal justice, public works, planning, and land development, leading to a promotion of chief deputy counsel in 1991. Whereas in 1995, the Board of Supervisors made the judicious, propitious, fortuitous, there can never be too many Latinate words with a document regarding legal counsel. Decision to appoint Tony as Placer County Counsel. Whereas for the next 17 years, Tony provided timely and effective legal counsel to the Board of Supervisors and to department managers. Perhaps more impressively, Tony regularly cajoled the powers to be that heed his legal advice through his career batting average. His career batting average with the Board of Supervisors remains buried under the protection of attorney-client privilege. Whereas Tony built a law office that reflects his leadership and his commitment to both quality legal service and excellent client service, Tony guided the County Counsel's office not only with his first-rate legal acumen, but also with abiding decency and a keen appreciation for the contributions of his staff. Whereas Tony, despite the demands of a very active legal practice, Tony has also been active in his community, serving as a trustee of the Auburn Union School District and as president of the Placer County Bar Association, as well as coaching recreational soccer. He has crafted solutions to local county issues that served as templates for programs in counties statewide, such as the county's Memorandum of Understanding with the United Auburn Indian Community. Whereas Tony has earned his highest respect for both his ethics and his judgment from the board members, department heads, courts, local bar association, his colleagues statewide, and his co-workers. Tony's leadership, judgment, and storytelling will be deeply missed by all. Therefore, the board is going to take forward this resolution, Tony. So personally, I think we started working together in the early 90s when I landed on the Planning Commission. And right away you sensed some very serious trouble for the county. And from the very get-go, a great appreciation for the fact that you never hesitated to advise me personally, even though oftentimes I did not want to hear your advice. But it was always welcomed because I was at least smart enough to realize that I needed it. But secondly, there are people in this business, in any business actually, who oftentimes don't want to quite really open all of their information with legal counsel. I think they'll tell them enough and they can weave their way through difficult times. But you, Tony, always had an orientation to trying to find solutions. So with all of the wild and crazy ideas that would come across my desk, I was very comfortable going to you, and I know that you would give me very conservative legal advice in a strong effort to try to keep me out of jail. But you would appreciate what I was trying to accomplish and the fact that I was trying to accomplish it, and you would oftentimes direct me in somewhat of a different direction, finding a place for my solution, but in a way that also was consistent with your job as County Counsel to the Board of Supervisors. Beyond that, I also have greatly appreciated personally your friendship. So, Tony, with that, we get to go down there and take a couple of photographs and whatever else you might want to rebut with.
Did you know about this? No.
I am generally not at a loss for words. I do feel a bit choked up. It's been a long time. As I like to say, there's a lot of water under a lot of bridges. And this has been an excellent job. My wife is standing over there, Lori. And I came here not at all sure this was the right choice. And there were a lot of reservations and huge changes in our lifestyle. And it just turned out better than I could have ever imagined. This is not good. I've had the chance to work on really exciting things, really interesting things with really good people. I've had the pleasure to work with a great staff, great department heads, great division heads, great series of boards of supervisors. 4, and I actually think 5 if you count Holly, county executive officers. And I know it's extremely current in the temporary minds of the people to complain about government. And I think there's a lot to complain about. But commonly people meet me and talk to me and they're just really misinformed. This county's never had an unbalanced budget. It never borrowed money to get things done. It got things done right. And it got done things, if not perfectly, done pretty darn well most of the time. And when not, there were always good lawyers around to help out. But it's been a great job. Again, I have great staff. I will miss this place. I'm not sure I'm going to miss work, but I will miss this place and the people. As I said to the board in my letter to them, the best part about any job are the people you work with. And this place is really, for 28 years, been full of really good people trying to do their best. And again, I want to thank my wife. With that, I got to shut up.
Supervisor Holmes.
Well, Tony, I've always appreciated your candor and your counsel. I remember the first time, I think it was our first budget workshop, and you came in pleading for money for your staff. But you led off with the history of the county counsel's office, and at one time it was just a part-time position where a part-time person came in. And my first thought was, we've got to find this person and bring them back. But alas, that wasn't to be. You gave me, even when I was first running for election, you gave me wise counsel. I remember coming into your office complaining about some misinformation or something, and you said, Jim, remember this, 95% of the work gets done every day. The toilets get cleaned, the streets get fixed, and it's always put me in a good frame of mind knowing that there's a lot of people out there that are working hard to provide our services. It's just that 5% that just drives us nuts. But you are always there to help me get through those times, and I'm really going to miss you, and I do value your friendship. Thank you very much for your service.
Supervisor Duran.
Yes. This your retirement, Tony, came as a shock to me, really. I know that there was probably a little bit of apprehension with me coming on the board, being an attorney. I'm not sure whether or not you've ever worked with a board member that was an attorney. And I learned very quickly, as you know, this job is very difficult, and you get a lot of different things thrown at you. And the term client control, I think you and I understand exactly what that means. One of the things that I was most impressed with is your ability to talk to us and explain the law, and that really is a testament to your abilities, as to be able to in the midst of chaos, quite often, to be able to be the voice of reason. And you helped me tremendously, because as you know, in this profession, we have a tendency to think that we are otherworldly sometimes. And you are very, very diligent in being able to draw the line for me between the attorney and the policymaker. And it was very easy for me, with your management style and the way that you explain the law, to be able to say, Tony is the lawyer, I'm the policymaker. And I appreciate that, and I wish you well in the future. I know you've got, there's a lot of things out there to do, Tony, and depends on how much you want to do. So I wish you luck, and I know that you're in the second phase of your life. You're going to have a wonderful time. But thank you for your efforts. And thank you, ma'am, for bringing them to us.
Tony, I knew this day was coming. And I've actually been dreading it.
Apparently you knew more about the agenda than I did.
I did this time. Tony, you know we've always appreciated, and the whole CEO's office has appreciated your leadership, your counsel, your occasional crankiness, which we appreciated, but also your humor. And there's not always something to laugh about, but when you can find it, it's really important to do. And we managed to do that. And didn't always want to hear your advice, always listened, always considered it, and mostly followed it. And I would say that for the CEOs that you've worked with as well. Miss you a bunch.
Okay, I get to go next. I've actually only had the privilege of knowing you and Lori, who's phenomenal, for just over 4 years. I also came in as a candidate for this seat, and Tony was willing to sit down and work with me. And so I remember at our first meeting, I asked him, what's your role as it relates to the Board of Supervisors? And he says, my role is to make sure that I never have to bring you a toothbrush. And I said, what does that mean? And he said, well, it's my job to keep you out of jail, because I never want that phone call in the middle of the night saying, Tony, can you come down and bring me a toothbrush? And I have to say that Tony has done just an incredible job from my perspective in doing exactly what the rest of this board and Holly has just said, giving us really sound legal advice, making it easy to understand, framing it in a context that really clarifies whatever the issue is in front of us, and also has done just an incredible job at doing that same thing when having us work with his staff. So as well as being an incredible attorney and wise counsel himself, he's also a wonderful manager, and I know that his staff will miss him greatly. You will not apparently have a lot of free time on your hands, because you've told me that you have a very long list of things that you must get to. But one of the things that I wanted to give you was, this is my favorite book in the whole world, and you will at some point have some time to read it. It's called Up and Down California. It's the journal of William Brewer, who mapped California from 1860 to 1864. There's some beautiful descriptions of Placer County in here. There's some beautiful descriptions of your former home in Southern California, back when it was all orange groves.
When it was beautiful.
When it was beautiful, yes, orange and olive groves. But this is probably the 8th copy of this book I've ever given away. I give it actually only to very few people who I love and respect dearly, who I know share my love of the state and the county. This is for you. I will miss you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for the chance to have worked with you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Lori.
And at this time, I'd also actually like to offer the opportunity, if there's anyone in the audience who would like to out Tony on anything, or give him any compliments. It's time for him to leave, apparently. Yeah. But if there's anyone who'd like to say anything, don't feel pressure. But this is an opportunity to go on record. Here's one. I knew we had a brave soul amongst us.
I'll let him share a moment with Lori there. Tony, it's been 25 years. I don't know if you know that. And I can get choked up about this, too. I cannot think of another public servant who has been more honorable, more dedicated, and hardworking than you. You have been of great help and support to me over the years, probably far more than you will ever know or realize how much I have relied on you over the years. And I just want to say that it has been a privilege and a great pleasure to work with you. Love you.
I came to work for the county about a year after Tony did, 6-8 months after Tony did. And I came to work as a groundskeeper. And Tony and I used to eat lunch together out here on the lawn once in a while, and we've been friends ever since. As I came up through the management ranks, what I really appreciate most about Tony is his common sense approach. The supervisors all talked about solution orientation. That's what Tony did. We'd get in trouble. That's what we do. And Tony'd find ways to help us resolve those problems and come out with solutions that really worked for everybody. And I learned a lot about solutions and how they work. And the best solution are solutions where everybody gets what they need. And that's what Tony was good at, and that's what I learned from him. So thanks a lot, buddy.
All right. Thank you all for coming. Really appreciate it. I know you will all miss Tony as much as I do. I see Supervisor Wygant and Supervisor Holmes' lights are still on. Just faulty buttons, apparently. They really didn't want to say anything else about Tony. But thank you all for coming, and I know that you will miss Tony as much as I will. Thank you.
Is it like exit now?
No, you have to stay.
His days have been getting shorter.
His days have been getting shorter. It's true. Okay, at this time we'll move on to Supervisors' Committee reports. Do we have any committee reports today? I see no lights.
Actually, I don't have a committee report per se, but I just wanted to announce that I guess it would be the groundbreaking for the Crick-Riolo Bridge over off Crick-Riolo Road took place yesterday. Not a whole lot going on because of the weather, but that project is up and underway, and actually should be moving dirt here within the next day or two. So again, thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you. Seeing no other committee reports, we will move to the consent agenda. This is a roll call item. All items on the consent agenda, items 16 through 28, have been recommended for approval by the County Executive Department and will be approved by a single roll call vote. However, anyone may ask to address consent items prior to the board taking action, and any item may be moved for discussion. Is there any board member or member of the audience who would like to pull anything from consent for discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call.
Approval of the item, second.
Holmes? Duran? Wygant? Montgomery?
Yes. All right, our timing could not be better. It is 9:30 a.m. We will move to our 9:30 a.m. timed item. We are being asked to take two actions: adopt the fiscal year 2012-13 proposed budget and adopt the fiscal year 2012-13 proposed budgets for lighting districts, county service area zones, and sewer maintenance districts as governed by our board. We're also being asked to approve early purchase of equipment on the master fixed asset list. Graham Knaus, with a very nice beard, presenting.
Temporarily.
Temporary, very nice beard.
Good morning. I am Graham Knaus, your Finance and Budget Operations Manager, and have the pleasure of presenting the 2012-13 proposed budget for your consideration this morning. I look forward to seeing something on the screen that resembles a PowerPoint, and then we'll work through that.
Oh, there we go.
Something's happening.
It's coming. The lamp is warming up.
It's representative of the budget development process. It starts with dim lighting and becomes more and more clear until this very day, June 5th. So we've really been building up to that for a long time, and thanks to Jeremy and Greg for facilitating the IT effect. So as you mentioned, we are here today to talk about the proposed county budget and also the proposed budgets for the lighting districts, the county service areas throughout the county, and the sewer maintenance districts. From a budget development standpoint, we do begin back in the fall from a staff perspective and have had discussions with your board since the December 13th meeting relative to the state of the county budget in terms of the general fund and some of the other funds as well. We have highlighted local budget and operational challenges throughout since December, throughout the spring here. That includes the challenge of ongoing balance between what the revenue base is and what the costs are. Certainly that applies to the general fund. It applies to other areas as well, and that's an area that we will be spending more time on in the near future as we are finalizing the 5-year budget strategic plan at your board's direction, and that'll be presented back to you over the course of the next few weeks. We've also talked about sustainability of library services in the face of declining dedicated property tax revenues in that area. Fire protection that has also faced some declining property tax, particularly in the area of the North Auburn, Ophir county service area. And as you know, there is a special tax measure on today's ballot related to that CSA. There's also been discussion relative to the South Placer Adult Correctional Facility. We began that back in December, and that's another item that will come back to your board for further discussion in the near future. We have, historically, when we talk about the budget, we provide a historical perspective related to revenues on a per capita basis and expenditures as well. What we've done here is add our 11-12, so our current year projection to this chart to show exactly where we're at, where we think we're at relative to the 2011-12 year, leading into the 12-13 proposed budget. What you'll see is that the big decline has certainly been on the tax revenue side relative to property taxes over the last few years. There was a pretty sharp decline on the intergovernmental transfers. That's generally federal and state revenue. That has come back up to some degree. Part of that is a function of the timing of funding for some of our infrastructure-related projects, and other pieces of it are related to, in part related to realignment-related revenues and sales tax producing revenues. On the expenditure side, we break these down by categories within the county system. On a per capita basis, they remain lower than what they were on a per capita basis back in 1977-78. And that applies to all the major areas. Of course, the one exception to that has been public protection, which has been a longstanding priority for your board. In terms of what has occurred over the last several years relative to the economic downturn, this chart shows the happy blue line, in part related to operating revenues leading up to 2007-8, and the red reflecting what the expenditures have been in the operating budget. It's up through 2007-8 where there was a healthy balance between the operating revenues coming in and the expenditures the expenditures that were incurred on an annual basis. When the revenues began to dip, and markedly so, in the 2007, 8, and 8, 9 years, some of the costs on the normal operation side continued to grow. And the gap between these two lines over the last several years is a function, has been closed through a function of, or through the use of the general fund reserve in 2008, 9, 9, 10, and 10, 11, and also through carryover fund balance. And as we move from 10, 11 to 11, 12, and into 12, 13, we continue to anticipate this operating gap getting smaller. The key for the next several years, though, will be how to ensure that there's a sustainable balance between what those revenues are and what the ongoing expenditures would be, and that will be a function of the 5-year budget strategy when we come back. This does include the year-end projection related to 2011-12 as well, so you can see where that is headed. Property tax, of course, is the county's primary discretionary revenue source, and that has been what has faced the steepest decline. It's about a 1% assumed decline in the 12-13 proposed budget, which is substantially better than what has been the case over the past. We are hopeful that we get to a flat and then what's anticipated to be a pretty slow but gradual increase in those revenues over the course of the next several years. But we're not quite there yet. So thinking about the economy, it remains delicate but determined, whereby there are some positive signs that are occurring within the economy. So we have what's a bit of a mixed bag. Property taxes, I just mentioned, is down a little over 1%. Sales tax, a relatively small revenue source for the county general fund, a little bit larger revenue source on the public safety side, has continued to go up. And in fact, year over year sales tax at this point is about 9.5%, related to the realignment connected sales tax is 9.5% above what it was last year at this same time. So some positive news related to that. Unemployment in the county right now is 9.6%. That's about a point better than what it was just a month ago. And there are nearly 1,000 additional folks that have been added to the workforce throughout the county. So that's some very positive news as well.
You don't mean to say that we've added 1,000 people to the Placer County workforce?
You're correct. We have not done that. This would be a function of Placer County residents and the level of employment with them at this time. So thank you for the clarification. As you know, there is continued uncertainty from the state as well as they go through trying to finalize their budget over the coming weeks and months. Cost drivers that have been folded into this budget certainly include the pension side, where there have been lower investment returns, and lower investment returns on the part of CalPERS translate into higher costs for us to fund those pension obligations. This is an issue to some extent in 12-13. It's a significant issue when we get to 13-14, in that there's a $3 million increase in our cost beginning in 2013-14. So we're a year off from that, but is a significant cost pressure to think about as we move forward relative to lower investment returns. Health benefits have continued to climb relative to the cost of those at about a 6 to 8% clip, and so still increasing. Measure F, as you well know, has the automatic increases that are built in relative to the public safety fund side. It's an annual cost pressure. We fold that in to the public safety fund while that is being balanced over the course of the budget development. And of course, the state budget, where there remain a number of risks. Certainly for us, exactly how that's going to play out is anyone's guess, even though they're only a couple of weeks away from their constitutional deadline. And relative to doing some things in the sphere of state government that have a positive impact on the county, there are some opportunities related to the realignment and increased flexibility for Placer County in terms of how that plays out that will be touched on later this morning as part of the ledge update. And certainly there are also greater risks that come along with that in terms of what the unfunded demands would be for some of the mandated programs. So there's a lot on this chart related to budget comparisons. So let me spend just a second explaining why I would put so much information on one chart. We often show and talk about the change from the prior year in terms of the budget and break that down by fund, and we've done that here today, and that's at the top. You can see the general fund is $4.5 million smaller than it was in 2011-12. Public safety fund is higher, primarily a function of some of those increased revenues. And in the infrastructure area related to public ways and facilities and capital projects, both of those come down pretty significantly year over year related to the timing of projects. And when we think about where we came from back in 2007-8, before the economic downturn occurred, down below you can see where those same funds are at and where the countywide budget was at during that time. We're now $100 million, $102 million less in our 2012-13 proposed budget than we were in the final budget in 2007-8. And you can see the breakdown by fund there as well. So on the whole, relative to the 2012-13 proposed budget, we're at $690.1 million spread across all the different funds. It does continue to meet core service priorities and is within the framework that your board has set related to those county financial policies and direction to ensure that we have as balanced an approach between revenues and what those costs are spread across the countywide service delivery model. On the special district county service area side, there are 195 of those budgets that are in as part of today's action, totaling $37.6 million. That's a decrease from what those were in 2011-12, primarily a function of timing, whereby there's a lower amount that's going to reserves in those budgets than was the case in the final budget. There'll be some adjustments made to those once the 2011-12 fiscal year has been completed, and so we'll see some changes to that when we get to the August budget workshops. In terms of looking ahead, from a fiscal and policy workshop perspective, there's an infrastructure workshop that's being put together for board discussion, the 5-year budget strategy that I mentioned. Then we'll transition to the August budget workshops on August 16th and 17th, and then the final packaging related to the final budget in terms of the public hearing and final adoption. So this morning I am requesting your board to adopt the 2012-13 proposed county budget and also the proposed budgets for the lighting districts, the county service area zones, and the sewer maintenance districts. And in addition to that, to approve early purchase of equipment that's on the master fixed asset list. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I'll bring it back to the board for questions. Supervisor Duran?
Yes, Graham. Thank you very much for your presentation. You had mentioned during the presentation that you were going to be presenting us with the 5-year strategic plan. How is that going? I mean, I saw a little bit of the plan template, and just can you give us just an update on where you are with that and when we can anticipate seeing it?
Certainly. We are finalizing that model related to our anticipation in terms of what's going to be happening over the course of the next several years relative to revenues and expenditures, how to ensure that there's an alignment and a sustainable alignment between the revenues that are going to be coming in and what the cost pressures are. For example, that increased pension costs beginning in 2013-14, that $3 million, we have folded that in and other cost pressures that we've identified to ensure that it is the most accurate reflection of what we're likely to experience over the course of the next several years, and working through some recommendations to get back to the budget and financial policies relative to ensuring as much as possible one-time funding is being used for one-time purposes. That operating gap chart that we looked at, trying to bring that line down so that it's in alignment between revenues and expenditures on the operations side, and speaking to some of your board's priorities related to long-term planning, and also recognizing of what some investment opportunities and what some of the demands have been that have been put on hold over the last several years. So all that is being pulled together and is going quite well in terms of finalizing that package and for your board's consideration here in the near future.
Good, good. So it sounds like it has been a useful tool, if anything.
It's been a very useful tool to see what lies ahead, not just 1 year out, 2 years out, but 5 years down the line, and how that, what we need to do today in order to ensure a balanced operation that meets what the mandated responsibilities are and the priorities of the board in the most reasonable way.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Supervisor Holmes.
Thank you, Graham. I want to thank you and Ms. Heinsohn for the terrific staff report that set everything out. It's very easy to understand. I'm pleased to see that we're anticipating a $27 million carryover, and that just doesn't happen. We've done that traditionally, but it's not something that just happens. It happens because our department heads take this budget process seriously, hold their costs down, but it also means that our workforce, which is down about 300, is doing a great job with less people to make things, to provide the services that we need to. And I just want to thank the department heads and all our county staff for hanging in there while we're going through this tough time and doing the job that needs to be done. It's greatly appreciated, so thank you.
Mm-hmm. Supervisor Wygant.
Just Graham and Holly and everybody involved in all this, thanks again. You do a great job of assimilating policy comments from all of us and reflecting that and communicating that in a budget that's very complicated and during times like this extremely challenging. So again, another thanks for all of this work over all these years.
Absolutely, and I'd really like to echo those sentiments to the both of you and to all the staff who worked on this, and particularly the department heads. I was speaking with some constituents over the weekend in North Auburn, and they had moved up here from the Bay Area about 5 years ago. So they were here sort of at the peak of our budget, and they're still with us today. And they actually asked me to pass along their thanks to the staff at the county for doing such a great job in such a tight time of budget constraints. And they said, they really, just the basic county services continue to be there when they need them. And they just think county staff does an incredible job, and they really wanted to pass that along. And the reason county staff can do an incredible job is because of this incredible economic planning that you, department heads, and frankly the rank and file here at the county have all worked together to make this happen in a time of not just dwindling budgets, but dwindling staff. And it's been a real challenge, and I'm not sure how many of the public realize how much of a challenge it has been. And I think actually breaking the budget out this year, as you did, into the two pieces makes it easier for people to understand the different things that we do here at the county, so I really wanted to thank you for that. Getting to Supervisor Duran's question about this 5-year planning process, I don't think I heard in your response when we think that's going to come back to the board for a presentation. Is that still July sometime? Is that our expectation?
June 19th, I believe.
Okay, June 19th. Okay, thank you. And then as part of that 5-year analysis, have we looked at what our expectations are if they're still in alignment for the Middle Fork revenue, just given the downward pressure on energy pricing from natural gas? Is that part of that analysis?
The The analysis focuses pretty heavily on what existing operations and demands are within the county budget structure. And so focuses on those revenue streams and those expenditures as well in terms of where they're at and likely to be over the course of the next several years. So it does not fold in the specific potential anticipated revenues related to Middle Fork as part of the strategic plan of what's going to happen relative to operations. It's as those revenues begin to come in, clearly that's a tool that can be used to be prioritized by your board, and so they remain obviously an available tool. They have not been folded into the specifics relative to this analysis, and Holly may want to speak more to that.
Yeah, certainly we'll be considering those revenues in the next 5-year period. We won't really be receiving actual revenues. So what we will show is that it's anticipated into the future, but it is not really imminent in terms of the existing structure. And I think there's a separate conversation to be had as to your board's priorities and how that fits into overall infrastructure planning over time. And I think that, they're coming along simultaneously. We have not incorporated into this next 5 years anything into that operational and infrastructure strategic piece that's coming.
Okay.
There's a nod to it. There's an acknowledgement of it, but it would be somewhat premature for us to be showing that in these next 5 years.
Okay, and then on the current proposed budget, I know that the state, thinking about redevelopment agencies or I should say former redevelopment agencies and those impacts on the county, I know that the legislature is moving forward some proposals which may rewrite largely negatively, from my opinion, to the county, that language in 126, X126. Have we included that sort of potential outlook in this, or is that something we're just going to deal with as the state comes forward with a budget?
So given the level of flux with almost anything related to the state, and particularly related to redevelopment in the state, and the number of proposals that have circulated over the course of the past 2 years, the proposed budget treats redevelopment as we best know it in terms of what's in law today. So there is, in terms of what action your board previously took relative to 2011-12 to establish the successor agency to redevelopment and the associated revenues of that to fund the obligations, that has been folded into the proposed budget. So that's been added in. To the extent that there's any change to that, then we would fold that in as part of a final budget adjustment or any other, whenever that may occur, if it's outside that time frame.
Okay. And then last, but certainly not least, I have been asked by a couple of people when and if the proposed budget will be posted online for people to have a look at. Is there an expectation that it will be posted online for people? And if so, when?
Yes, there's an expectation. It will be very soon, within the next couple of days, and we'll try to actually get it sooner than that. On the county's homepage, there's a link to a budget page which has all of our memos and the proposed and final budgets from last year or from 2011-12 on there. We'll be adding 12-13 to that as soon as we can get it on there. So very, very shortly.
Wonderful. Thank you. Holly, did you have something?
I was going to add to the redevelopment piece. I did want to let you know that to the extent that there were redevelopment projects included in the redevelopment budget, we will be addressing those as part of our infrastructure plan. So if you were talking about the expenditure side, those are addressed in terms of our overall infrastructure planning efforts to the extent that we can.
Okay.
On the actual budget side, those revenues any additional revenues have only been folded in to the extent that Graham had noted. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Excellent. Thank you. Any more questions from the board on this item? Anyone in the audience want to comment on this or have any questions? Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval of items number 1, the fiscal year 2012-13 proposed budget, 2012-13 proposed budgets for lighting districts, county and service area zones, and sewer maintenance districts, and 3, approve the yearly purchase equipment for the master fixed asset list.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much, Graham, and thanks to everyone who helped pull this together. Holly?
Yes, I would just like to thank the board for your fine direction and support on this. It's been a compressed time to put this budget together with limited staffing, and I need to thank all of our CEO staff for really stepping to the plate to make this happen in, I think, a very positive manner. So thank you all. And then also to the department heads who really continue to drill down and make things work in their own departments. So we appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Counselor?
So, on my last day, I'm going to make historical comments all along. This is not the first highway robbery that the state of California has engaged in. It's just the most recent and dramatic example. And staff has always bounced well under the direction of what I consider a fundamentally conservative direction. Don't spend what you don't have. And board after board after board, if I've been here, have lived by that. This is just another example of it. Who knows what the state's going to do if they're so far in the hole from bad management. So, a little liberty. Thank you for the chance.
My pleasure. You can pontificate anytime you'd like.
Soon I'll do it all by myself.
Excellent. Well, you can just show up in public comment and say whatever you'd like. All right, we will move on to department items. We're starting with our first department item, which is Administrative Services, Procurement. I don't see Brett Wood. Oh, yes, I do. He was hiding. These are 2 blanket purchase orders. Brett Wood will be presenting.
Good morning, Chairwoman Montgomery, Supervisors. I'm here today with item number 6A, which is the request to approve an increase to the Cisco blanket purchase order for food products for the jail. Oh, my apologies. I also have Renee Harvey here with Food Service Manager from Probation, and we are here to request an increase for Cisco of $25,000 to their existing contract or their existing blanket purchase order, as well as request at this time the board approve renewal of 7 different blanket purchase orders for food services. These blanket purchase orders were last presented in July of 2011. They provide food for the jail, and we use the number of vendors recommended because Renee and her staff do a great job of going out and soliciting quotes for different products from these vendors. We try and make sure that we manage the fluctuating food prices and work with all of these vendors to find the best products and services that we can find at the most economical range. At this time, the increase, we are requesting $788,000. It is an increase from last year of about $50,000, and that is due to a basic increase in food costs of about in between 0.1 and 17%, depending on the commodity that we're looking at, as well as other food manufacturing increases of about 3%. So with that, we're happy to stand for any questions for these.
All right, any questions from the board?
Yeah.
Supervisor Duran.
Yeah, just one question. You mentioned that you have a $50,000 increase to the 788. Is the $25,000 on top of that?
Yes, sir. The $25,000 is for this fiscal year.
Okay. And that $25,000 gives you greater flexibility in your purchases? Is that what?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, that's it.
Supervisor, I'd also like to add that we've had an increase at the jail of population as well that was unexpected. And so along with that in the gas prices, we tried to keep it within the budget, but that did impact us slightly before the end of this fiscal year.
And that impact was due to the AB 109
Yes.
shift in responsibility from state to county, correct?
Correct. It was, the population jumped by, roughly 80 inmates, and that was not calculated in as far as our overall budget a year and a half ago.
Sure. Thank you very much for clarifying that.
Supervisor Holmes?
Renee, I just wanted to thank you for your hard work managing that food service operation. Having been raised in the restaurant business, I know it's a challenge, and you do a tremendous job, and we really appreciate it, so thank you.
Thank you.
I see no other questions or comments. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 6B is a request to renew our existing blanket purchase order for Allen Packaging for our disposable trays. This was presented to the board in 2006 as a change from standard hard trays to disposables. We made this recommendation for sanitary and safety reasons, and we have since been very successful with Allen Packaging in working with them. We have utilized, over that course of time, a contract from San Diego County. They go out, they have a much larger population, and they do a very good procurement for those products. Allen Packaging has allowed us to utilize volume discounting, and they have agreed to renew or extend the same contract terms to us for this coming fiscal year as well. So at this time, we're requesting a $325,000 blanket purchase order with Allen Packaging. And we're happy to stand for any questions.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, just curious. I understand this, the sanitary piece of it, security piece. Are people making devices out of the food trays? Is that?
When we went to these trays, there was no historical history to them. It was a new concept. I had researched it for 2 years. And in the interim, since we've been using them, we've had, as far as officer safety goes, it's increased immensely because of it. They can't make weapons or shanks. They can't do things. The other thing that we've noticed is that there were little side benefits from these trays. We noticed that carrying the trays for the officers and doing because those other trays were quite heavier, it reduced a lot of pressure on the officers on count, tracking, everything, as well as handling the trays. Also within the department, we noticed usage. We were able to cut back on staffing hours because we were able to process these trays much faster and more efficiently. So the argument was, they're costing us more they cost so much as a return every year, but the costs that we've saved to do this exceeded the cost of those trays.
Great. Thank you again for clarifying that, and thanks again for your work.
All right, I see no other questions. What's the pleasure of the board? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Really appreciate all your good work. Okay, at this time, we will move on to our second departmental item, number 7, Community Development Resource Agency Planning, Truckee River Corridor Access Plan, EIR contract, presented by Michael Johnson.
Good morning. At the board's April 10th meeting of this year, the board authorized the county executive officer to sign a contract with AECom Technical Services to complete the preparation of an environmental impact report for the Truckee River Corridor Access Plan. This morning's request is to allocate a budget revision to allow for the completion of that study. The funds for the project will come from the North Lake Tahoe Resort Association Infrastructure Grant Program, as well as the county's Open Space Trust Fund. There are no general fund monies being used for this contract. Staff recommends the board move forward with the budget revision. Staff is available to respond to any questions the board has.
Are there any questions on this item? Very brief, thank you. All right, I see no questions on this. I'm just going to comment. I think this is a great project in front of us, a great proposal for a project. It's a long time coming, very, very much supported by people in the community, both the NITRAC and the Squaw Valley MAC. We're really pleased to see this coming down the pipe. Is there an element that will include analysis of a bike path that would continue the connectivity from Squaw Valley to Truckee?
That will be a part of the analysis.
Excellent, thank you.
One other question, Chair.
Please.
Michael, I understand that the estimate was 350 and the actual expenditure is 315. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so there was a savings of 35,000.
Yes, the contract has been revised.
Great, thank you so much.
All right, what's the pleasure of the board? And this is a roll call.
Wygant, Duran, Holmes, Montgomery.
Yes. Thank you very much. All right, we will move to departmental item 8, County Executive. We're receiving an update on our legislative program/platform. We'll be asked to authorize the chair to provide comment letters and provide any policy direction. Allison Carlos presenting.
Thank you, Allison Carlos, the County Executive Office, and the actions are as the chairwoman stated. Today, I just wanted to bring forward an item that was an update on legislation. We're in the middle of session with the state legislature. They have just moved all the bills out of the House of Origin that are going to occur, and I think given that, plus some of the budget trailer bills we're seeing daylighting, it was a good time to check in. As noted in the staff report, there are about 30 bills highlighted that we're tracking more closely. Obviously, there are many, many more that the departments and CEO are looking at. In terms of that particular list, I would like to point out 3 bills on that list are now dead bills, just for the good of the order. That would be AB 1590, SB 1441, and AB 1530. So just for the record, in the staff report, since the time the staff report was drafted, those bills have died in the process.
I'm sorry, Allison, that was AB 1540, SB 1441, and AB 1530?
1590. AB 1590, AB 1530, and SB 1441. And specifically, the 1590 was the Assessment Appeals Board definition being included as a legislative body. That one's fallen away. 1441 would have required the state prison sentences for felons to have otherwise been sent to county jail when they have been sentenced for 3 years. That one has fallen away, as well as the 1530, which, put my glasses on for that one, Economic Development, Clean Manufacturing. So the list that's residual, and would point out not all inclusive, of course, this the deal with redevelopment, public safety realignment, predominantly, and general government. For redevelopment, as was noted in the previous item, there is a lot of activity trying to clarify what AB 26 was intending to do. The bills that we see coming through from various legislators, particularly Steinberg and Perez, your board has taken no action on in terms of support or not. However, we've been very active with Peterson Consulting in looking at how there could be some amendment, and particularly to Perez, for those interests that you expressed for the Tahoe properties, and particularly the parking lots. That is still in play. We're hopeful for additional modifications. Some amendments have already occurred that will be helpful and contingent upon ultimately what the Oversight Board would choose to do as things are brought forward. So there will be more report on that in terms of if we can get further down the road with that. Most of the bills, as your staff report indicate, are dealing with an interest to have a sustainable communities policy approach, predominantly as relates to affordable housing and the sustainability of that element of redevelopment that prior was in place, and then also some roles of the successor agency and the Oversight Board. More importantly, I think today is there is a budget trailer bill for redevelopment that staff is asking your board to agree to the chair signature for an opposition. Staff is still fully evaluating that with multiple departments. We know our auditor has expressed some concern. Essentially, what it tends to do is the Department of Finance has been inundated by this process, and it would appear that the policy interest to secure as much of the revenue back out through to the taxing entities is coming to play in their interest to expand and regulate and prescribe processes a little bit further than what we would have expected under AB 1X26. So what we're most immediately trying to do is get a letter out requesting that they limit the authority that they're trying to impose as the Department of Finance, as we don't think that was truly the original intent of the bill, but the Oversight Board was giving great powers as a local elected body of folks or appointed body of folks to do that. So what they're, in a nutshell, some of what's happening is they're reaching in to prescribe to not only our auditor controller but the state controller how to implement 1X26, and it is without the, or it's outside of the Oversight Board processing. So that's what that letter would do. We are still, again, reviewing that piece of legislation, that measure, but we think it's essential that we go on the record at this point in time. Also...
Excuse me, Allison,
yes.
can I just interject in this piece here? Have you talked to any other jurisdictions? Because I know, having served on the redevelopment board down with the city of Roseville, that this particular piece of or opinion by the Department of Finance has been severely controversial.
Yeah.
So what have you done any coordination or talked to any other jurisdictions to see if we can get some momentum with them as well?
That's an excellent idea. I know that Ray James, as your redevelopment director, is meeting regularly with the other agencies, and I would, based upon that comment, what we can do is I can perhaps get with her to have a legislative look-see at this particular measure right away. Mm-hmm. And up until this point, it's been implementation without perhaps getting involved with some regional approach to legislation. But that makes very good sense, and I think that we can accomplish that through that group.
Right, because I've heard through that both houses are just, off the charts on what Department of Finance is trying
Right.
to do. I'm going to assume that since you haven't really gotten into the weeds on what Department of Finance is proposing, that you're going to follow this up with one, perhaps another correspondence and get deeper into the weeds in it.
Yes, we can do that, and we will be timely in that. So we'll prioritize that, and we'll include in that some discussion on a regional approach.
Great, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Briefly on realignment, won't touch much on that. Graham had noted that one of the things that has occurred, there was also a budget trailer bill that had come out, or language for that. It actually came out of another jurisdiction, and staff was very responsive to providing some language that would benefit Placer County's ultimate flexibility in how those funds could be used between the sub-accounts, as well as continuing to build flexibility, as all have understood that 2011 realignment was intended to have a continual build-in of that. The SRA, just want to mention it briefly, those bills have pretty much all fallen away. I'm very sorry to report. And we will continue to look for opportunities that might present themselves on that. On pension reform, in addition to what's on the watch list, staff would recommend, let me not get ahead of myself. In terms of pension reform, we don't expect anything to move forward until August, when the bills that are currently out there, which are primarily the governor proposals, would go to committee for that discussion. So staff clearly believes that at this point in time something will daylight, but it'll happen in August. And then lastly, we are asking for your support letter for the Calderon bill, SB 1167, and this is going to hearing tomorrow in the Senate, so we'd like to get that bill, the letter of support, down to the legislature today, if the chairwoman would be able to sign that. So I won't go on any further. I would just answer any other questions you might have, but we did want to get back to you on some of the things that are happening most materially right now.
I see no other questions from the board. I really do want to thank you for this update. I think particularly, as it relates to realignment and the redevelopment issues, this is just going to be critically important for the county moving forward. The actions that the state legislature are proposing, at least some of them, in terms of the Department of Finance and expanding their authority and oversight, I think goes far beyond anything the legislature had in mind when they passed the initial law, the initial language. I really want to echo Supervisor Duran's encouragement that we combine our forces with other jurisdictions to really make our voice loud on this one, because I think there are some potentially very bad outcomes for the county if the Department of Finance is given some of the authority as proposed. And we need to fight tooth and nail on that for all our districts, because it really matters to each of us here. So this is just an update. We don't have to take any action on this, but thank you very much.
For the good of the order, you might want to just approve the chair signing of the
Okay.
letters.
Oh, yes, we're being asked to authorize the chair. I'm sorry, that's correct. All right. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. I am now authorized. I am duly authorized. Thank you. It is 10:15. We will move to our 10:15 timed item, which is facilities. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's just take the district attorney item first, if we don't mind. Mr. Owens, if you wouldn't mind coming forward. I'm sorry, we don't want to. You have crimes to deal with. What am I thinking?
Thank you. Scott Owen, 10810 Justice Center Drive, Roseville.
Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you. Lovely to see everybody. We're just asking the board to approve a resolution to accept $764,706 from the California Victim Compensation and Governmental Claims Board. It's the 17th year. The money will be divided out over the course of the next 3 years to help us to provide services to victims. There's a 28% match, general fund match, which is built into our proposed budget and will be in the upcoming years as well. It's been a very good program. In 2008, with the passage of Marcy's Law, there was a lot of additional burdens that were imposed upon that unit. They've risen to the challenge, but the money goes to help fund 3 claims specialists and 1 victim advocate within our office.
Excellent.
I'd just like to comment real quick before we take this up that I do appreciate the effort that your department has made in addressing the issues with victims of crime. And I recently attended the victims breakfast a couple of weeks ago, and it was very outstanding and very heartwarming. And I do appreciate you sponsoring that event and taking that on and standing up. So,
thank you very much, Supervisor Duran.
Yep, absolutely. What's the pleasure of the board? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Everybody have a nice day.
Thank you. Okay, we will now move on to our 10:15 timed item. Granite Bay Parks, Trails, and Open Space Assessment District. Mark Rideout presenting.
Morning, Madam Chair. Mark Rideout, Facility Services. This is the Granite Bay Assessment. This is an annual trip to the board to take the final step in assessing about 8,000 properties in Granite Bay to maintain the 8 parks, 20 miles of bike trails, and 30 miles of multi-use trails in that area. Through this action we're requesting today, it'll bring about $567,000 into the county coffers to maintain those amenities. So in this action, we're requesting that your board conduct a public hearing, and that's to consider adopting a resolution that approves the engineer's report, confirms the diagram indicating which properties are being assessed, and also sets the assessment amount at $71.32 per benefit unit, and this is a CPI increase of 2.92%. I'm not certain if you have any questions on this item.
I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Any comments from the board?
It's pegged on December to December, so it's December 2010 to December 2011. The assessment text caps that increase at 3%. If it had gone over that, the assessment would be, that amount would be carried forward to the next year if it was below 3.
Anyone in the audience wish to address this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve item number 2. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you.
Motion is passed. Thank you. Now we'll move to our, let's see, we're not ready for 10:25. So we'll go to, I'm new at this. Item number 10, Facility Services Trenchless Technology Sewer Rehabilitation Project, SMB1.
I will ask Bill Zimmerman to join me for that item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bill Zimmerman with Facility Services. I'm here this morning to ask your board to adopt a resolution accepting the 2011-12 Trenchless Technology Sewer Rehabilitation Project as complete, and also authorizing the Director of Facility Services or his designee to execute and record the notice of completion for the project. The trenchless technology projects that we undertake are a really cost-effective way for us to come in and repair damaged and cracked sections of our sewer collection systems. The projects involve going in through the manholes and running deflated liners through the section of pipe that we want to repair, and then inflating them with steam and allowing them to cure and harden in place. And because there's no excavation, no backfill, no pavement that we have to come in and repair, we're able to do those repairs very cost effectively. The project that we have before you this morning lined 4,461 feet of pipe in Sewer Maintenance District 1, which is the North Auburn area, and an additional 2,114 feet of pipe in Sewer Maintenance District 2, which is the Granite Bay area. And the total project cost was $220,299, which works out to be about $33 a foot. Had we had to go in and excavate and backfill, that cost would have easily been into the hundreds of dollars per foot. The plans and specifications for the project were approved by your board back in July of 2011. Work on the project began in November of 2011 and was completed in December. And in order for us to finalize out the construction contract, we're asking your board to adopt the resolution included in our staff report accepting the project and authorizing the Director of Facility Services to execute the notice of completion. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions from the board?
I just have one. It's not necessarily a question. I think it's something to commend you guys for. Total project budget was $322,426, and you came in at $220,229, or $299, which is over $100,000 less than budgeted. Good work.
Appreciate that. Typically what we'll do with a project like that is we'll try to take that extra money and find additional sections of pipe that we can come in and repair and fully utilize that budget. In this case, we didn't have any additional pipelines that at this point in time needed that repair work.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Let's see. What is the pleasure of the board? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Bill. Thank you, Jim. Let's move on now to item 11, Health and Human Services, Children's System of Care Umbrella Contracts, presented by Richard Connect.
Good morning, Chairwoman Montgomery, members of the board. Richard Connect, Director of the Children's System of Care. I do have a minor amendment to item 11A this morning, as one of the contractors has determined at the last minute that it cannot complete the terms of the agreement. So under attachment A on item 11A, there's a list of contractors that are covered here. About the 7th or 8th agency down is Sacramento Children's Home, and they will not be included in the agreement this year. The systems of care maintain contracted relationships with networks of residential and outpatient providers of mental health services in order to meet state and federal mandates. These two umbrella contracts together facilitate the delivery of mental health and behavioral care for nearly 600 residents each year. These services lead to better outcomes for families and at lower cost to the county. They help children remain in home and school and assist adults to avoid hospitalization. Continuing a now 3-year trend, we're pleased that both of these umbrella contracts are being reduced this year as a result of deepening and improving partnership with community providers, school districts, and the positive impacts of improved child protective interventions. Due to these efficiencies, combined costs in these two contracts will be just over $1 million, representing about a $300,000 savings over last year. So in item 11A, element A seeks to leverage $94,000 in required county support to spend $456,000 in state and federal allocations for group home and residential mental health services. Item B seeks your support for $28,000 in required county general funds to spend $442,000 of additional state and federal monies for outpatient mental health services. I'd recommend your board's approval of the umbrella contracts with residential group home providers under element A and the contract with network outpatient mental health providers under subset B. I'm happy to take any questions.
I see no questions from our board. It's a pleasure. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Under your agenda, item 11B, the Children's System of Care has 3 contract renewals, which together provide mandated life skills training, vocational and career preparation, and other related supports to foster youth as they graduate to adulthood. Historically, outcomes for Placer youth exceed state success levels in most areas, including rates of college enrollment and rates of homelessness. These three agreements together provide a continuum of supports for more than 200 foster youth and young adults as they graduate or leave the system of care. In Element A, your agenda under 11B, again, Unity Care Group has been an excellent partner in recent years in Placer, and the department seeks your approval to renew their contract for mandated independent living program services. This is a 2-year contract total in reaching $404,992 all state money. In Element B, Whole Person Learning has effectively delivered these housing supports for 4 years now in Placer and has supported a successful transition to adulthood for nearly 160 former foster youth in that time, many of whom would otherwise face early adulthood without homes, family, or other basic resources. More than 50% of these young people are currently enrolled in 4-year academic programs, and a number of them have or are soon to graduate from college as a result of these housing supports. They're able to pursue additional goals in life. This contract allows access to $594,518 state dollars. No county general fund is required. And then finally, in Element C, it's a second contract with Whole Person Learning to use Mental Health Services Act funded money for youth supports, mentors, providing advocacy, peer mentoring, and training. Again, no county funds are required and gives us access to $353,101 state dollars. I'd be happy to take questions on any of these three agreements, and I would recommend your approval and support.
I see no questions. What's the pleasure of the board? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Supervisor Duran is still out of the room. All right. We will move on to our 10:25 timed item, Facility Services, County Service Area Assessment, and Fee Report. Jim Durfee presenting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jim Durfee, Director of Facility Services. I have a recommendation today that your board conduct a public hearing and adopt a resolution that would confirm the County Service Area Assessment and Fee Report for fiscal year 2012-13, and that you authorize the collection of the assessments on the 12-13 tax rolls. Your board is probably aware that we operate somewhere near about 175 county service area zones that provide various services, including street lighting, road rehabilitation, drainage maintenance, snow removal, fire protection, parks and landscape maintenance, among other things. We maintain a couple of fences and different kinds of things through these voter-approved assessment zones. The Department of Public Works, Emergency Services, and Facility Services are the primary departments that operate these services utilizing this funding sources. The CSAs are created when subdivisions are created. They're a property owner voter-approved assessment. Prior to Proposition 218, many of the assessment districts or zones did not have inflators built into them, and so those remain static, and the number or the dollar assessment does not change on those zones. After Prop 218, we started putting CPI adjustments into those voter-approved assessments, and those assessments actually automatically adjust, but your board has to each year conduct this public hearing to set up the assessment rolls and authorize collection of those fees. So the only dollar adjustments that you would see in the attachments are those that are voter-approved assessment changes. We're not recommending any changes other than that. All of the pertinent information is included, the fee report and so forth that are included as part of the attachments to the resolution. I have staff here to answer any questions that you may have, and we would recommend that you conduct a hearing and take the recommended actions.
All right. This is a public hearing. I'll start with the board. Any questions or concerns on this? Seeing none, I will open it up to the public. This is a public hearing. If there's any member of the public who would like to come forward to discuss this issue, please do so. All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. What's the pleasure of the board? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move to Departmental Item 12, Public Works Agreement, Amador Stage Lines. Will Garner presenting.
Thank you. Good morning. Will Garner, Public Works. This morning we are asking for your approval of a resolution to award a contract to Amador Stage Line to do our Placer Commuter Express service. And Placer Commuter Express is our commuter bus service that runs to downtown Sacramento on the weekdays, taking Placer County residents to work. And we do it with 4 routes. We have 5 buses to do it. As far as this procurement went, there were 3 proposals submitted from different transit companies. We had the process was led by of course, by our Procurement Services Division. We had a 5-member evaluation panel review the proposals and conduct interviews. And the recommendation was unanimous to recommend to your board, Amador Stage Lines, to continue to run this service. They have been our contractor, by the way, since 2004 when we started the service up. This new contract would go into service on July 30th. And it's a quick note, this service is funded by the county and our city partners, Rockland, Lincoln, Loomis, Auburn, and Colfax, all pitch in every year. We do a survey of the passengers and where they live. They fill out a moderately sized survey and tell us their residence, and we every year redo the funding share based on those responses. They've been pretty steady every year. The county has about 1/3 of the passengers that are unincorporated residents. About another third live in the city of Rockland, and then it's spread around the rest of the cities. So anyway, the recommendation is to adopt a resolution authorizing the Director of Public Works to execute with County Council and Risk Management's review and approval an agreement with Amador Stage Lines for the provision of Placer Commuter Express through July 31st, 2015, with rates offered by Amador Stage Lines in an amount not to exceed $360,000 in year 1, $374,000 in year 2, and $388,000 in year 3. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, I don't see any questions. One thing that I did want to just make clear, Will, on this is you state in the staff report, cutting out the empty bus trip in the morning on the afternoon trips will save approximately $60,000 per year in bus operating costs. These are not actually scheduled trips for riders. These were the deadheads getting back to the bus barn.
Getting back without the people on board, so we're going to eliminate that.
We haven't been running empty buses.
No, not on this.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure on that. Thank you. All right, seeing no other comments or questions, what's the pleasure of the board? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. Moving on. Contract 1134, roadway surface treatment, summer 2012. Kevin Tabor presenting.
Good morning. Thank you. This next item, we're asking you to adopt a resolution authorizing the chair to award and execute the construction contract for contract number 1134, roadway surface treatment, to Western Pavement Solutions in the amount of $3,126,126, and authorize the Director of Public Works to execute contract change orders up to 10% of the contract amount. This is a contract that will utilize 3 different types of surface treatments: chip seal, a rubberized chip seal, slurry seal, and then a combination of those 2, which is known as a cape seal. It's a countywide project covering approximately 50 miles of roadway, so we're pretty excited to get that done and do a little catch-up work as far as resurfacing goes throughout the county roadway system. We had 3 bids, which is typical for a contract like this, and Western Pavement Solutions was a low bidder, coming in just barely over the engineer's estimate of $3.1 million. There's sufficient funding available in project number 2956, road resurfacing fiscal year 2011-12, utilizing CSA funds, which were just previously discussed, road funds, and remaining portions of Proposition 1B funds. So with that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from the board? Kevin, I had 2 questions. The first is, you emphasized that this is rubberized chip seal. Is this a new process, or is this, or have we just not called it that in the past?
Well, it's a new process for Placer County. We've used rubberized asphalt in our overlay programs for a few years now. Most recently on Taylor Road in Penryn, very successfully. we're kind of following the city of Roseville's lead as using a rubberized oil in the chip seal process. So in years past, the county forces have done a chip seal just using, if you want to say, regular oil. But so this rubberized oil utilizes ground up tires, which as part of the contract have to be tires from the state of California for future grant opportunities. But so it's not a new process. It's been around for many, many years. It's just a new process for Placer County.
But it makes, as I understand, for a more cohesive application and a quieter ride. Is that correct?
Well, the overlays where we're actually putting down blacktop definitely is quieter. This is the oil that is rubberized is just for the chip seal portion, so it really shouldn't have any effect on the noise generated from it, because most of the areas will be cape sealed, so it'll be covered with a slurry seal on top of the rubberized chip seal. So I haven't heard of any sound reduction benefits from a rubberized chip seal.
Okay. And then my last question is, will there be somewhere on our online system where the locations of these treatments will be posted so that
we haven't taken that step yet. What we did do this time, because it is such a comprehensive project, was we sent out mailers, notifications to all the county residents on the roadways that are affected. We're meeting with the contractor later this week. They've indicated they might put something on their website to be viewed, and we'll look into putting it on the county website, because a project like this, which is somewhat disruptive to the residents, usually more information the better, which is why we did the mailer. So I'll look into that. Thank you.
Okay. And then my last question was, I just wanted to make sure, the staff report says that the low bidder was Western Pavement Solutions of Brea, but when I look at attachment B, which is the plan holders list, Western Pavement Solutions seems to indicate that they're based in Auburn.
I believe that's just their local representative lives in Auburn, and so he's an Auburn-based person. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Holly?
I was just going to note that we'd be happy to work with Kevin through community outreach to get those up on the website, and that would make it available to the community.
Great. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, what's the pleasure? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Kevin. All right, departmental item 13, Sheriff, Jail Services, and then Criminal Justice Software System. Come on down. You don't look like Janice Gage, but that's okay. Well, hush, come on. Good to see. Here she is. I thought we were going to get a treat.
I can defer.
You're a treat too, Janice. I'm sorry.
Good morning, Chairwoman Montgomery and members of the board. Janice Gage with the Sheriff's Office. We are here to request your approval of Amendment Number 5 to an agreement with Nevada County. It's between the Placer County Sheriff's Office and Nevada County. It will extend an existing agreement for 2 years, beginning July 1. The amended first-year cost is $380,633, and second year is $385,220. Excuse me, I'm out of breath. For an increase, or for a total amount of $765,833 for the entire 2 years. That represents about a $28,000 increase for the 2-year term of the extended contract. Funds have been included in the requested budget for next year. Your board's approval for the amendment is required and requested this morning. And we have Captain Hutchinson here who can speak to the contract if you so desire to ask questions, or I'm happy to answer questions as well.
I see no questions from the board. What's the pleasure? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, and the second item is also an amendment. It's amendment number 4 to the agreement with the Placer County Sheriff's Office in Tiburon. It is to provide maintenance for our systems to support our criminal justice software systems. We're also requesting that you authorize the purchasing manager to execute any related documents. The amendment will be incorporated as part of a master agreement for fiscal year 2012-13. The maintenance period begins on July 1 and culminates on June 30th, 2013, with an annual cost of $348,338. It represents a net increase of almost $17,000, which includes a 5% increase over what our maintenance costs are currently. Funds are included in the Sheriff's Office requested budget for next year. There's no additional impact to the general fund, and we are in the process. We anticipate that this will be the last extension of this agreement because we are in the process of replacing the system, and we have our IT manager, Jerry Silva, here if you would like to ask any questions of him, and I'm also happy to answer any questions.
Right, and just a quick question, we're talking Apollo, right? Is that correct? Or is
So we're talking the Tiburon system replacement. The replacement for that system is termed New World.
New World, okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Jan, I understood that the Tiburon system was being phased out and being replaced with this.
That's correct.
New World, or whatever it's called. And what is our expectation as to when that will happen?
I'm going to defer to Jerry Silva, who is the expert in this area, and he can give you an update.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The anticipated timeline for updating to the New World software right now is May of 2013. So we're looking at about 1 year from now. We have the new software is installed. It's active, and we're working now on building out the new system and working on training plans for that.
So hence the June 30th, 2013 would be the end of the Tiburon system, and
Correct.
we would not expect to see any sort of
Right.
additional requests for Tiburon moving forward?
Right, that's correct. This is anticipated to be the last maintenance period for Tiburon. That's right.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the board? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jerry. Item 14 has been removed at department request, so we will not be hearing that today. We will move to item 15, County Council, closed session.
See, the second surprise of the day, I didn't know item 14 was being removed. So we're going to go into closed session. The board will take up an existing litigation matter, the Brady matter. They will also discuss an anticipated litigation matter with counsel. We will do labor negotiations with both issues presented on DSA and PPEO. And then we will go to the continuing discussion on public employment of the county executive officer. We will report back later.
All right, and then we will come back out of that, just in case anyone's playing along at home. We do have an 11:15 timed item and 11:30 timed item, so we will see you back here for that.
versus the County of Placer et al. The board received a report from council and gave direction to extend the defense to the named individual county employees, standard reservations of rights. On anticipated litigation matter, the matter was not discussed and will come back in a future date. With regards to conference with labor negotiators, we essentially didn't have any discussion of labor negotiations. With regards to public employment, the county executive officer, the county Board of Supervisors has directed staff to come back next Tuesday for the appointment of a new county executive officer and conclude discussions with that candidate before Tuesday. The matter will come back, I think, 9 o'clock, the scheduled time for next Tuesday morning. That closes this report.
Thank you. All right, at this time, we'll move to our 11:15 timed item, County Executive Assessment Appeals Board. This is a public hearing. Leslie Hobson.
Good morning.
Presenting. Thank you.
Thank you. Leslie Hobson with the County Executive Office. The item before you is a request to hold a public hearing to adopt an ordinance that will phase in a non-refundable application for changed assessment fee of $35 per parcel effective July 5th, 2012, and increasing to $40 effective July 2nd, 2014. The Assessment Appeals Board consists of 5 appointees approved by your board and was established in August of 1993. The Assessment Appeals Board is charged with rendering decisions on appeals that filed by Placer County taxpayers relating to the value assessed on their properties. The assessor places a value on the property. If a property owner disagrees with the assessor's valuation, they can appeal this value with the Assessment Appeals Board by filing an application for changed assessment with Clerk of the Board. Due to the decline in residential and commercial property values over the last 4 years, the number of appeals filed by property owners has increased over 400%. From 597 applications in fiscal 2006-07 to 3,408 filed in fiscal year 10-11. Of this total, 727 were commercial properties, 2,213 were residential, and 228 were classified as other. The increase in the number and complexity of these appeals has impacted the Clerk of the Board's workload, requiring additional resources to be allocated to the Assessment Appeal Board with the additional costs absorbed by the general fund. Currently, Placer County does not charge an application for changed assessment fee to recover the clerk's cost associated with processing these applications. However, 29 other jurisdictions within the state have adopted such a fee that ranges from $26.75 to $65, or an average of about $40 per parcel. Similar to other jurisdictions, our application for changed assessment fee was calculated per parcel, because when one application is filed for multiple parcels, each parcel is assigned a unique number and processed individually. A time study was completed to determine the amount of direct time required to process the 3,168 parcels that were filed from July 1, 2011 to October 31, 2011. In addition to direct staff costs, additional costs were included for management oversight and supplies. The average cost to process one parcel is $49.43. Only application processing costs were included in the time study. The auditor's office reviewed the fee methodology and found it was in compliance with the county's charge-out rate policy. Staff recommends the board consider approval of an application for changed assessment fee in the amount of $35 per parcel, effective with the new roll year at July 5th, 2012. The recommended fee is significantly less than the actual cost to process an application for one parcel. However, it is similar to fees adopted by other jurisdictions with comparable populations. Staff further recommends that given it actually costs $49 to process an application and that labor costs are expected to rise, that this fee be increased to $40 for the roll year 2014. If the fee is approved at $35 per parcel and 3,000 parcels, let's say, are processed, the fee would generate around $105,000, while the estimated cost to process the same parcels is in excess of $150,000. While neither the $35 or $40 fee will achieve full cost recovery, board approval of the fee would greatly reduce reliance on the general fund revenue sources to fund these costs. Staff is available to answer any questions, and we're asking that you hold a public hearing.
Thank you. Any questions from my supervisors? All right, seeing none, this is a public hearing. If there are any members of the public who have any questions or would like to comment on this item, now is your time. All right, seeing none, I will bring it back to the board. Leslie, I do have one question on this, and that is just what is the implication for people who are already in the queue?
They're fined. It would start with the effective date.
Okay, so it would be any new
applications
coming
filed
forward.
with the new processing period, the new application period.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Jack, would you turn your microphone on?
The only comment that I would have is that, in this time that we have with regards to dwindling budgets and having to rely more and more on our general fund, it only makes sense to get something to offset whatever additional costs that we are and the impact it's going to have on the cost to actually process these applications. So something, I guess, is better than nothing.
Holly?
Yes, I would only add, I do want folks at home to know that should this fee be approved, that this truly will allow us to add a staff person to the clerk's office to assist with this processing, and we think it can help us do it in a smooth manner. It offsets some of the existing workload that really they have assumed absent new staff, in fact, with a staff reduction. So we do look at this with an eye towards customer service.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, what's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval of the item. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We do have an 11:30 timed item, so we'll be back in 6 minutes to address that. All right, we will now take up our 11:30 timed item. This will be our final item for the day. Ken Graham.
Good morning, Chairwoman and members of the board. Ken Graham with the Department of Public Works. Today we're asking you to conduct a public hearing and approve a nexus study for the Dry Creek Traffic Impact Fee Program, as well as modify the proposed capital improvement program for that district and modifying the fee as appropriate. The new fee is proposed to be $3,010 per dwelling unit equivalent, which is a reduction from the current fee, which is $3,362 per dwelling unit equivalent. Your board approved the Traffic Impact Fee Program in 1996. Really two portions of that. One is to ensure that all the needed transportation infrastructure is financed and eventually built. And second also is to ensure that everyone, particularly all the new development, pays their proportional fair share of that new infrastructure. Last year in 2011, your board approved a modification of the transportation element of the Dry Creek Community Plan. As part of that, you recognized all the new development that occurred in that area. The last plan update had occurred in the 90s. So since that time, there's been a lot of development that has occurred internal, which, for instance, we have the new approved projects like Placer Vineyards, Riolo Vineyards, and Regional University. But also all the new development that's occurred around us, particularly West Roseville, and even some of that's occurred in northern Sacramento County. Also, as part of that plan, what we did is recognize some of the existing roadways in the Dry Creek area, particularly Baseline Road, Willarga Road, and Watt Avenue, as being the future major multi-lane roadways within that crossing throughout that area. Other roads would also be taking additional traffic, but those are the three major roadways. The new capital improvement program identifies $137.8 million in transportation infrastructure that's required. $79.4 million of those improvements are proposed to be funded through the Traffic Impact Fee Program. The remainder is funded through individual developers developing the property immediately adjacent to their property or outside fund sources. It's important to note that the current CIP, or Capital Improvement Program, was shared with the development community. It's been shared, discussed, modified even as part of that process to come up with the current one you see, and we are asking you to approve today. Again, the current Dry Creek fee is $3,362 per dwelling unit equivalent. It's being proposed to be reduced slightly to $3,010 per dwelling unit equivalent. That's about a 10% reduction. And really the reason why we're able to do that is because of all the new units, all the new development that's being proposed. Not as much new infrastructure is necessary, and so when you balance it out, a slightly smaller fee, but still all the same infrastructure that's required that your board approved through the community plan. And with that, happy to answer any questions, and again, asking you to conduct the public hearing, approve the nexus analysis, approve the modification of the capital improvement program, and then the associated modification of the traffic impact fee for that district.
Supervisor Duran?
Yes, thanks, Ken, for bringing this forward. As you're well aware, and as you so eloquently did a couple, I think it was a year and a half ago, we passed the transportation element for the plan out in the Dry Creek community. What, as I recall, in our discussions with regards to some safety and some safety elements that we've put into Cook Riolo right now, does this will this and the reduction still provide for the opportunities to have some funding for additional traffic calming devices if we need it out in the area?
Absolutely. In fact, one of the, along with widening some roadways, some of the impacts you identified in that community plan, the transportation element included some traffic calming elements on some of the roadways that will take more traffic, but we want to make sure that they're going at an appropriate speed. And Cook Riolo, PFE, there is a specific project in here to provide those levels of improvement, some of the ones we're looking at today, but also going into the future because there may be more impacts, or there will be more impacts as more development takes place. It is allotted for in this capital improvement program.
Great, and thank you for expanding on that, because I know that in our discussions with the MAC with regards to the mitigation, measures that we're encountering out there, that was one of the things that we talked about, that there would be future funding for additional measures if we need it. The second question that I have is I see and appreciate the fact that you did talk to some of our stakeholders, but did you seek any community input with regards to the fee?
In regards to the fee itself, no. Through the community plan process, we had extensive public outreach, and here at the board as well as in individual meetings. Typically, once we get to that point, that sets the capital improvement program, the level of improvements that we need. And then it's simply a mathematical exercise to make sure, is that the right value, is there enough money to cover that improvement? We typically have not done that with the community. Okay. The stakeholders definitely have a vested interest to make sure there is enough money to construct all the improvements within the program.
In the future, I would suggest, because what you're telling me, Ken, makes perfect sense, because we have the bigger kind of 30,000-foot view of what needs to happen with regards to transportation. But I do think that it may help just a 5-minute discussion at the MAC, just to let everybody know that, because there may be a perception that there is less revenue and less funding to do the things that we kind of discussed just a couple of weeks ago. But I understand completely how the pieces fit together. So thank you.
Any other comments from the board? This is a public hearing, so I will open this up to the public for any questions or comments. Seeing no public in the room, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Having completed all items, I will adjourn the Board of Supervisors meeting at 11:40 a.m.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.